Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mount Tam Psilocybin Summit. It's the third annual Psilocybin Summit. My name is Mike Margulies. I'm the founder of Psychedelic Seminars, which you can find at psychsems.com, Psychsems. And I'm also a good friend of Daniel Shankin here, who is the founder of the Psilocybin Summit of TAM Integration. We also co-founded the Crypto Psychedelic Summit together years ago, which some of you might be familiar with. And today, my friend Daniel here is going to be talking about elemental meditations. You are nature. How's it going, Daniel? Welcome to your own conference.
Thank you. Thanks for holding this space for me. I would like to say that TAM integration is actually Mike's fault. There's a few people that I blame, and Mike is one of them, because I just wanted to have an integration circle, and I was just gonna like make a flyer and be like, meet for integration circle at the community acupuncture place. And he's like, no, you need a name. It needs an organization. It needs a name. You can't just say Dan's circle.
Well, I'm sorry. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, it's this little TAM history. So I thought today we would meditate. I'm a big fan of meditation and teaching meditation. If you don't know me, I've been teaching meditation for 20 odd years, and I have found that it's really handy for psychedelic preparation and integration. And there are some practices that are better than others for certain things. And today, since the conference in general, I wanted to have sort of an environmental theme. I wanted us to think about our connection to the land and the environment and recognize ourselves as part of that. I figured we would look at some environmental meditations that more like elemental meditations, if you will. So just going to call it You Are Nature. Do you guys see that? Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is, I teach a 4-week class called Meditation for the Journey, Sitting for Psychonauts. And it is just a practice, 4-week training. We go over a lot of different kinds of meditation. It's good for our own journeys. It's good for people who like to sit for other people as well. It is slowly evolving into a bigger, more comprehensive training, but enough about that. I figured we would start just by blessing everything, if you don't mind. And so if you would take a meditative shape, meditative stance, sitting or standing or lying down, it doesn't matter as long as you're comfortable and you can breathe. This is a Vedic prayer called the Mangalam. Mangalam means auspiciousness or peace or goodness or blessings, right? And so we can just deepen the breath. And I would just like you to think about just blessing the earth around you. Just thinking about how good and how pure and auspicious and wonderful the earth is. It's very simple. It's not going to be complicated. Just think that you have the capacity to just bless the earth. Often we ask for the earth's blessing, and that's good to do too. But now you bless the earth. And everything that it also represents, in as much as the earth of your body, the things like your muscles and bones, right? The viscera, the meaty part of your body, the solid part of your body, the stability, the strength. Then let's bless the water. There's all of the waters, all of the seas and oceans and rivers and creeks. Just think about how good and pure and wholesome they are. And then also think about the waters of your body. Perhaps you can taste the liquid in your mouth. Perhaps you can feel the wetness of your eyes. Water represents flow and cohesion. The fact that your bodies miraculously works together and has coordination. There's a cozy juiciness to it sometimes. And then moving from the water, just bless the fire. All the fires. Use everything that is warm, everything that is heated. This might even include lightning. And I know it's tough because in California, the fires are a bit out of control, but we'll just sort of honor the element of fire as something natural and wholesome. And when we think about the fire of the body, we think about the warmth in the belly, the digestive fire. We think about the fire in our minds, the part that processes information, that allows us to gain insight, right? So when we have a psychedelic journey and we have an experience and we turn that experience into insight, that's fire. Mike, can you add Andy to the spotlight?
Hey, yeah. So I have you both pinned. Did I not do that properly?
No, don't pin us, spotlight us.
I can't spotlight both of you. That was the.
You can.
All right, I'm gonna try. That's what I tried before. All right. I'm spotlighting Andy, and now you're gone. And I can.
Well, then it should say add spotlight.
Okay, there we are. Sorry about that.
Cool. Right, intelligence is fire. Figuring it out is fire. Thanks. And then we'll bless the air that we breathe. The winds, sometimes it's called. So we bless the winds that blow. And we bless our breath. We see that it's wholesome and it's good. Right? The breath and the winds and the air is what allows us to move. It gives us a certain kind of agility and motion. It's what lives in our joints when our joints crack and we hear that pop, that's air moving. The air that we need in our digestive tract to allow the digestive fire to work, right? Fire doesn't work if there's not air, there's not oxygen. And so just breathe it and bless it. And then the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars. So all of the cosmic beings out there. The stars that there are more stars than grains of sand. So just recognize that you can connect, you can send your energy out there. It's unbound, right? There's no limit to where you can send your blessings. All beings, right? So everybody who's here today, everybody who's not here today, all of your friends, all of your family, all of your ancestors, all of your past lives, their ancestors, the people who walked the land before us. I happen to be on Mohican land right now. Just all beings, even the people that you are a bit argumentative with right now, people who may have hurt you, people you may have hurt. It is the Day of Atonement, so perhaps thinking about the people you may have hurt, blessing them. And just allow that blessing and that peace to be everywhere and in everyone. Mike, how did that feel?
Yeah, good. I was, if I'll be a little vulnerable here, a little honest, I was a little distracted by trying to figure out technical things in Zoom.
Right. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. But yeah, I appreciate the words you were saying though.
Mhm.
And all these different elements, both in their physical, the actual waters, but also the waters within us, the fires outside and within, these are all important things to acknowledge and think about. And the Day of Atonement thing also resonates for me as well. I'm fasting today for Yom Kippur. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm fasting. I'm drinking some water because I'm doing a lot of talking today, but
I'm drinking a little water also.
the fasting feels good. So moving it so this quality of blessing, I think, is important. It's really nice to recognize that it can go out, that we can generate goodwill and good vibes. This is something that can come in really, really handy when we're in a psychedelic space, when we sometimes feel like we don't have any agency and we're getting sort of kicked around by the power of the medicine. That when it comes down to it, we, the more we practice it, the more able we are perhaps to be able to send good vibes into our space and through our own body and through our own field, right? So the blessing is, and just the good vibes and the wishings of peace and the creating the vibratory quality works, right? One of the really amazing things is that it actually works and that it protects us from some of the negativities that we don't necessarily have to deal with at full force, right? I mean, I know that we are very committed to doing our work, right? We want to do shadow work and we want to face the things that are hurting us or terrifying us, the things that have been holding us back, the things that lead us to hurt other people. We want to deal with those things. But sometimes it's a question of pacing, right? When we were talking about turning experience into insight, this is one of the functions of fire. This is a very important function. And this is where this brings us to integration, right? When we integrate, that's what we're trying to do. We're taking this raw experience and we're trying to turn it into insight, right? It's alchemy, something usable, something that's going to benefit us, something that's going to benefit our community, something that's going to benefit our world, right? And so, period. So this next slide, because I've been thinking about Yom Kippur, I've been thinking about Jewish things. The phrase "May their memory be a blessing" came up for me, and I know that there's been a lot of loss lately. People have died unexpectedly, and people have gotten sick. We've lost people, and so there is this Jewish prayer. May their memory be a blessing. When we lose somebody, that's what we say about them. That may their works, hopefully their works and the love that they've offered, can still continue to bless people. But I was thinking about the term memory, right? Because in Ayurveda, we talk about the functions of the mind, and memory is one of the functions of the mind. Our mind basically does three things, and this is a little simplistic, gets a little, but for the most part, the mind remembers things. It thinks, right? It processes information and does creative thinking and things like that. And then it motivates action. So it's like lift your arm lifted. So I was thinking about, may our memories be a blessing, right? Because sometimes, when you think about things psychedelically, you recombine words and you change meaning around and things like that. It's one of the things, we create new associations, right? And so the thing about our memories is that's our past, that's our whole life, that's our past, that's our experience, right? If we experience something and we don't remember it, right? Did it happen, right? And of course, they're repressed memories, but you know what I mean. And so, like, a wonderful practice is to, and this is, in some ways, this is a lot like metta meditation. If you ever have practiced that, which is loving kindness meditation. And the prayers there are is like, may all beings have happy minds. May people be peaceful with whatever comes. And so if we think about that, it's like what we're working with is we're engaging our memory in a new way, right? And so we sit and we meditate, we breathe, and then somebody pops up into our head, right? It's like, oh, I'll just bless that person, right? And we bless them, we wish them well, we love them, and then they drift away because that's what happens. And then another person or thought comes up, and then we bless them, right? And this can be hard because a lot of the people that pop up, not all of them, but some of the people that pop up are people we're mad at for something. They did something to us, some perceived slight, right? Sometimes we can't get the other 50% out of our head, right? Like the rest of the country, right? Who doesn't get it, right? And we want it reinforces our ego, right? It strengthens who we think we are to hate the other side, right? You get that, right? Like every time you're hating the other, right, you're ossifying and concretizing your own ego. So when you say things, when people come to integration circle and they were like, I want to kill my ego. And it's like, well, why don't you just stop hating others? It's like half the battle. So blessings, just generating blessings. And so from the Ayurvedically inclined, right, if you may have, some of you may have recognized that those three functions relate to three qualities in Ayurveda called Raja, Sattva, and Tamas, which we won't get into all that much. But it's important to recognize that these functions, memory relates to the earth, sort of this old solid thing. And then the activity, using your mind to motivate action, is action, is fire. And then this cognition or meditation is air. And so those start to turn into also the three doshas, right? So Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, if you're familiar with those. And we'll go into this. I go into this in the class, in the 4-week class. But the idea is that we all have a constitution. Some of us are more earthy, some of us are more airy. I mean, does anybody know like a space cadet? Right? I know some space cadets. I sometimes am a space cadet, right? And then does anybody know somebody who's like really fiery? Yes, of course you do. Right. And then we also know people who are like really grounded or earthy or solid and stable. And of course, all of these have, sort of balanced and, positive ways that they can manifest. And all of these can go out of balance in some ways. Right. And so the idea is, I'm not trying to make my constitution the same as Mike's or the same as Andy's or the same as yours. I'm trying, because they have their own unique one. I'm trying to make my constitution the healthiest one that I can have. Right. So one of the really wonderful ways that I can do this is, again, through these altruistic meditations. Right. So this is what we're getting at. We're getting at like altruism. We were in the last talk talking about things like reciprocity, talking about things like extractive colonial practices in Mexico and things like that, right? It's not selfless. And so we all do what we have to do to, make money in this world and work and function and contribute like that. Like we all need to sort of do that, it seems. But then what we want to do is just add some altruism, right? Any way we can, anywhere we can. Like Nadine is fire. Cool. So, I mean, we could do, this slide, this slide is a 10-hour thing. So bringing in fire and air. Does anybody recognize this quote? Does anybody know where turn on your love light comes from? Turn on your love light and leave it on. Pigpen, yes, Pigpen, right? And Mike did notice that I am wearing the Steal Your Face TAM integration shirt today. Wouldn't not wear today. So, some of my powerful insights, they're on the website, Adam. Some of my powerful insights, revolve around Grateful Dead's music. And so when I hear about turn on your love light, when we think about that and what that meant to us, right, is kind of reminds me of the Care Bear stare, as we have. For those of you who kind of grew up watching the Care Bears like I did, about the Care Bear stare. And what this lets us know, again, is that we are capable, right? This is what we want our meditations to teach us, that we are capable and responsible in ways that we didn't ordinarily think we were, right? A lot of us are sort of driving around on autopilot, just sort of doing what we're told, right? And this is something that happens, in psychedelic experiences, is that people realize that they weren't living their own lives before, right? That they were doing as they were told, and that nobody cared about their needs or their desires or their feelings, right? And many of us were not taught to care about our needs or our feelings. This is really sad. And so starting to tune into that can be very, very intense, and it can be very, very overwhelming, because if we have been sad for 25 years and not allowed to feel it, like, imagine what happens when we finally allow ourselves to feel it. We sometimes feel like it's never going to end, which again is why pacing is important, right? And when I say we send blessings out to mitigate some unpleasantness and negativity, we're not turning away from it, right? We're not bypassing it. We're just sort of allowing ourselves to process it in a time that actually works, right? It would kind of be like if you were going to eat a whole pizza, right? Or a slice, I don't want you to overeat, but when you sit down to eat a slice of pizza, you do it one bite at a time, right? It wouldn't make sense. But, nobody's going to tell you you're spiritually bypassing because you don't shove the whole thing in your mouth all at once, right? That's insane, right? And at the same time, if you were eating hot soup, I really like hot soup as a metaphor. Like, you can tell I'm fasting. It's just going to be food metaphors today. So let's say you're eating hot soup, and you're eating hot soup with somebody else, and everybody knows how to eat hot soup, right? You take a little bit off the top. If the guy across from you dug his spoon into the bottom and like took the soup from the hottest part of the bottom, you would think that they were an alien. That you'd think they'd had a job parking spaceships. And so we take a little bit off the top, we swallow it, and we digest it. And also, what's great about soup is that it's delicious. So we actually get to savor our own experience instead of just gulping it down and ending up with indigestion, right? And so when we add just kindness and blessing and patience to ourselves, we get that. We get to savor our experience, which is in the next slide. So turn on your love light and leave it on. So often we think that our love has to come from outside of ourselves, that love comes from being in a relationship, or love comes from money, right? Or that love comes from other things. Just if I had that, then I would have love, right? If I had that person, then I would have love. And that is outrageous, because you're a Care Bear, right? You're all Care Bears that can just generate it. You can turn on your own love light, and like, you just shine it out. Instead of it being about an object, it's like you as the subject doing the loving, right? You're no longer consuming, you're not like addicted to external pleasures that you think are going to give you love. You are pushing it out into the world, right? Look at how happy all these little dogs are, right? You just make all the little purple dogs happy, right? Which brings me, and then, so this is sort of like, oh, let's do it, right? This is meditation class. So what I'd like you to do is just picture like a little bit of fire in the belly, right? So the belly, right? Digestive, the belly, and then the heart area is sort of airy. And so it's almost maybe sometimes it feels like a little bit of a pinwheel that's spinning, right? And so I just want you to like just breathe all the way down into your belly through the heart. And so it comes down past the heart into the belly, gets a little fire, gets a little spice to it, a little fire, and then you just exhale and it comes back up through the heart and out in all directions. It's just a simple practice. You just breathe down into the belly, draw it into the belly. And then out through the heart in all directions, not just up and out, but almost like it was a horizon. Just bringing it down to the belly helps us to ground it as well. Because psychedelics do have a tendency to increase air and space, they can make us a little bit ungrounded. So breathing down into the belly, the tantien, if you will, grounds the experience a bit. We exhale out through the heart. And then, of course, anybody who pops into your head, if your mind wanders, then it's like, oh, that's where the love goes, this breath. All right. If nobody pops into your head, you just breathe love out in all directions. If somebody does pop into your head, you just send it to them. All right. This way, the mind wandering is not a problem. It's part of it. Grist for the mill, as Ram Dass would say. Just about 5 more of those. Excuse me. All right, very good. Mike, did you love anybody?
Yes. Well, I love many people. You mean specifically in this moment?
Well, you know, during the practice.
Yeah. I mean, I'll leave names out for purposes of this, but of course, as we mentioned, it's Yom Kippur. So I've been reflecting. Well, a starting point for figuring out what to atone for, I made a list last night of all the conflicts that I've been in ever since last Yom Kippur, so over the last year. And I just wrote down every name I could think of, and I tried to dig through old message histories too and figure out what are all the conflicts I've been in. Some of which maybe I have something as accountability, maybe some of them I have to forgive. But some of those folks came up for me. And yeah, I appreciate what you said about how attaching to negative feelings toward others is a form of kind of ego calcification, right? It's sort of like, I'm right, they're wrong. And if we can step into, even if somebody objectively, whatever that means, did was the wronged person, if we can step into that compassion space and let go of being right, let go of who's right or wrong, and have that compassion. That is a way of kind of, if you want to have your ego death, you want to move towards that. Letting go of being right is a good way.
Yeah, letting go of being right is a great way.
Mm. Mm.
And I was just thinking about, Nev said that they really like the pizza analogy, and talking about, it sometimes seems counterintuitive to savor what seems like our suffering, right? But it's oftentimes so poignant when you get into it. It's like sometimes we get into things when we were very, very young, and even when really unpleasant, harmful things happen to us when we're young, when I will work with clients, and sort of travel back there with them, their memories and their, I ask them to sometimes to describe, what this child who's going through this at, like, 4 or 5 or 6 years old, the descriptions of these children are so beautiful.
Mm.
Like, it's like there's so much innocence and kindness and brightness, and sometimes, confusion or sadness, that is just so lovely to behold, that gets lost in the shuffle, right? That inner child just gets like, it's almost too painful to feel, right? And so that gets buried down there too. And so, watching people reconnect with their own beauty is something worth savoring.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. Something that's coming up for me now. I had a conversation at Burning Man with someone in my camp who described kind of enjoying negative emotions, in the sense that, sadness can be actually a lot more intense than happiness, and I thought that was a very interesting perspective. When I experience grief, for example, there's this intensity, and so, like you're saying, you can savor that. There is something
Well, there's no
cathartic.
grief without love, right?
Right. What did the Vision say in WandaVision? He said, "What is grief but love persisting?"
Sure, who's the first one?
Yeah. But I mean, as you mentioned, there's a lot of grief this year, and I certainly had over the last year periods of intense grief and crying, and there's something to say for really being present in those moments and really going into that sadness.
Well, and one of the things we find is when we don't fight it, there's something really gorgeous about it. It's rich, like you're saying, it's a rich experience. And why wouldn't we want to have the full range of human emotions, especially if we're, we've had experiences, psychedelic experiences, where we sort of see ourselves as some kind of like interdimensional shaman elf who just happens to be incarnated, as some schlub, for the time being, that is here to be a human. Like, why wouldn't we want to do all of the human things? It would be like strapping myself, not feeling sadness would be like strapping myself to a board so that none of my limbs can move, and say, this is physical fitness.
Right. Yeah, we're here to experience all of the things.
Yeah. And so let's talk about pleasure. Let's experience pleasure.
Yeah.
Another Grateful Dead quote. We can discover the wonders of nature rolling in the rushes down by the riverside, which is a quote from Sugar Magnolia, which is, I found this cute picture of, I wish I was in the market for a blanket, this Grateful Dead Sugar Magnolia blanket. And so I just like this popped into my head because, there's just this idea of just kind of getting our hands dirty, like being in the dirt, being in the earth. And even while I'm telling you this, while I'm talking to you about this, kind of my feet are sort of activating. And so I would like you to, you see where it says WWJD down at the bottom of that list, which means, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Right? Which is not a terrible question, depending on your conception of Jesus. Or it can be a very, very good question. But I sometimes like to ask WWFD, which means what would my feet do? What do my feet think about this situation? Because so often I'm so up in my head and I'm so disconnected from my body that if I remember that and I just like go down to my feet, it's like the energy drops and all of a sudden there's just a little bit more perspective and wisdom, just a little bit more clarity. And so I would love it if I hope you guys aren't wearing tight shoes. Is anybody wearing tight shoes? Take them off.
No shoes on me.
No shoes. You don't have to show us, believe you. And so, enjoying, as I wish we were outside, to do, the forest bathing and the earthing and the grounding and sticking our feet in the earth. And, I don't know if any of you have ever sort of had a psychedelic experience where you were like inside for a long time and maybe it was getting stuffy and, weird and you had to get outside and you went outside and you just like couldn't wait to like connect to the earth. Maybe you like spun around and drop down into the ground, or maybe you just got on your knees and put your hands in the grass, or put your feet on the ground. And that's all the time, right? Lisa Jean knows what I'm talking about. And so like this is something that I don't want us to lose during medicalization, right? I don't have any problem with medicalization on its face. Like this is good, this is fine. I would hate to think that psychedelics could only be taken in some sort of laboratory situation. Right. I tripped on MDMA with someone recently, and she noticed that I had the tendency to rub my feet to each other like babies do. Yeah. And so this is the other thing that I like about this quote is like rolling in the rushes sort of has this kind of sexual connotation, but rolling is also a metaphor for taking MDMA, which I thought was kind of cute. And I also just want I just wanted to bang a drum for a moment of like destigmatizing and de-shaming pleasure. Pleasure is mandatory for healing. If you read the Body Keeps the Score, you listen to like the works of Bessel van der Kolk, who talks about somatics and trauma. Like he talks about happiness, joy, pleasure, connection as a thing that heals trauma. I was in a class with him not too long ago, and he said that one of his favorite tools were beach balls, were like blow up balls. Because the thing about a beach ball is that you can play with somebody with them, right? And so, and when you're playing catch, you're connecting with somebody, right? And so the connection, whether you're having sex with the person you have sex with, or you're playing catch with the person you play catch with, you are having fun, hopefully. You're legitimately having fun. And, you're rubbing your feet together. Why wouldn't you? I mean, we can get into all of the esoterica, like all of the energetics of how the nerve endings end in your feet and the meridians, that the kidney meridians, the other meridians terminate in the feet. And when you're rubbing them together, you're activating your energetic system, your energy body, and creating health for your organs. So that's like a thing. But also it's like, it feels good. And so I'm just wondering, that was my thought, is that I was actually going to suggest you just sort of gently rub your hands together and just kind of feel, because this is a thing we do too when we're high, is we like let ourselves touch velvet, right? We allow ourselves to innocently experience sensuality. And so if you're in a place where you can rub your feet together, then please do. Or if you're in a place where you can rub your hands together, or if there's something nearby that's cute or pleasurable, I I think I'm gonna grab. I've got this little canvas bag that it's a kind of a rough hemp canvas that I keep my tarot cards in. And if you have nothing, you know it works really well. Oh, you have hands, most of us, right? But the breath too. It's like learning to not just savor our experience, but savoring our breath. And so see if you can kind of breathe in the most sensual way, as if you're drinking wine, you're eating chocolate mousse, right? You're just like enjoying, it's the most pleasurable thing that could ever happen is your inhale and your exhale. And just take just a few breaths like that. I found the inside of my armpit. Alrighty. And so those are all the slides. I mean, this is just one that says, TAM integration does a bunch of stuff. Come and hang out at TAM integration if you want. Join the email list, do an integration circle, they're free. But thoughts on pleasure?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to keep talking about Burning Man because it was a very powerful recent experience in life for me right now. But a big theme for me, not just there, but also the last couple of years, has been really being my fullest self. And actually, the note, let me see, I have the note right here. Be your fullest, most authentic self. Through that, you create the most value for others too. And so that was I was having fun. I was just really being my most ridiculous and wild self and going around and I found that the more I would lean in, there's inhibitions around that I've had. And the more I've leaned into just being weird, being wild, being fun, the more people around me are having fun too. And if they're not, maybe if it's not their jam, they can always walk away. But the people that are on that same vibe can come and we can, and it's been so cathartic doing that. And that's just kind of a recent experience that I've had. But it's been a theme for the last few years, is really just peeling off those layers of inhibition. And I mean, I think it applies to both the sides of the spectrum, right? We're talking about grief and pleasure. We have this kind of inhibition on both ends of feeling the things, feeling the bad emotions, feeling the pleasureful emotions. And I think a lot of the work is stripping away that so we can really fully feel all the things, feel all the deep sadness, feel all the amazing joy, and allow ourselves to feel the things.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably worthy of grief that we have kept ourselves from being ourselves because we thought there was something wrong with us.
Yeah.
That if I didn't pretend to be different, then I wasn't lovable or something like that.
Yeah. And I can think about when I first started doing psychedelic activism, and there's this idea that like, well, I have to be.
Are we doing it now?
I think so. Yeah. I think
Nice.
This is it.
Cool.
I think we're totally doing it. This is the deep work.
Cool, please.
Well, this is the real work there, right? It's not just about, passing the policies, that stuff, but it's how are we showing up in the world? That's just as important. It's not just about what the work we're doing is, but how are we doing it? How are we showing up? How are we being? Not what are we doing? That was another thing I wrote down actually in my notebook here was, it's not just about what are you doing? Because it's a constant question for me. It's like, what should I be doing? But wait, how am I being? How am I showing up? And yeah, I think it's tremendously important. And there was a time where, I thought if I'm talking about this subject, I have to present myself in a certain way. I have to be really buttoned up. I have to do it. And like, sometimes that is what I want to do. But sometimes I want to wear a t-shirt, wear a hoodie, have a mustache. A lot of the times that's how I want to show up. And that's part of it too. Just really, even in my serious work of fighting for justice in the world, letting myself be. Yeah. And just more and more embodying my truest self in everything that I do.
That's awesome. Yeah. I do want to, that's another 3 hours of conversation.
Yeah.
I just want to, so somebody said, can we possibly do a Wim Hof breathing method technique as well? And I'm not sure when you say we, you want you to do it or you want me to lead one. So I can't lead one. I'm not a Wim Hof
Right.
guy. I think he seems cool, but I don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know
It's just
how to lead that either.
it's when I do more gentle stuff these days. You know, there was a time when I really did like intense practices and, you know, 3-5 hour yoga practices and stuff like that. And I'm a little more, you know, was really trying to get there, but I sort of feel like enlightenment's inevitable at this point. I'm just trying to be nice. Does anybody else have any, but I'm not, which is not to say that, and then that's also, I just want to say, so that I'm not shaming anybody for being their unique self, that it's a constitutional thing, I think, as well. So it's like, Mike, I work to find the practices that I feel like are good for my constitution, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We have to finding our authentic self. It's by definition different for everybody. No one else is you. So finding yourself is is an inside job. So you got to figure out like what's me. It's not what anyone else is doing, but like what's the thing that I need to do? What's the thing that is me, the most me that I can be? So that sounds like a Dr. Seuss thing. I think it might be.
Totally. Are there any other questions from any other people? No other questions from no other people.
Cool. I mean, that was great. I really appreciated it. I could share some more reflections if we still have a couple minutes.
Yeah, share maybe one or two, and then we'll meditate for the last 5 minutes.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll share one more reflection. When you were on that Care Bear slide.
Care Bear stare, yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about how love isn't something you find in some kind of external object, right? That's going to give it to you. It's something you cultivate internally. And I wanted to echo some of that because that was been my experience too. And in particular, I had an MDMA therapy session a couple years ago, and that really, the big pivotal moment was realizing that I love myself. And it turns out that is kind of important. And it was really interesting because I found all of a sudden in my life after that, things were easy, my relationships, right? Everything kind of things that I felt like previously I was striving for, right? That just became noticing them. Oh, they're here. And just noticing, noticing someone else is attracted to me, right? Being able to even to see that. And, but it was all cultivated internally. It wasn't I found something external, right? But I had to cultivate my own self-love and put it out there to the world, like you were saying. And then and the rest kind of starts falling out. And that's been my experience actively in the last few years.
Somebody once suggested to me that the reason that we can enjoy beautiful things that are outside of ourselves is because we have that capacity to love. That, it's an inanimate object, but it acts as, a sounding board, a mirror or a diving board into love. You dive into that experience, through a chocolate croissant. It's my third and perhaps final metaphor, food metaphor. But that deliciousness really just points back to us. Yeah. Any tips for someone sitting for the first time with a significant dose who has previously only experienced very low microdosage? Um, a sitter is cool if you can get one, right? If you can't get a sitter, work your way up slow, right? It's like, it's one thing to do 5 grams of mushrooms with somebody who's very experienced, right? Who's there for you. It's another thing to do 5 grams of mushrooms all by yourself, one day after not doing any mushrooms. Microdosing notwithstanding. Whereas if you took half a gram, and then in a couple months you took 1 gram, and then next couple months you took 1.5 grams, and then a couple months you took another 1.5 grams, like you could start to develop a relationship with the thing, with the molecule, whatever it was. And so, if this is a practice, right? So for psychedelic people, they're sort of like, oh, I want to get in and get out and fix my life. And with that, you want to sit or a therapist or something. If you want to do work over an extended period of time, have it be part of your spiritual and emotional therapeutic process, part of your lifestyle, then you have time. You have time to develop a relationship. And somebody said breath. Yeah, I mean, I would do all, it's do these meditation practices, do things that help you get into your body, things that help your body feel comfortable and happy, right? The less tense you are, the less tense you'll be. Create sacred spaces for yourself. Just sort of like, so all of these elements here, I'll take it back to the elements. So all of the let's say 5 elements, right? And I'll do from most solid to least solid, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? 5 elements. And those 5 elements, right, relate to parts of our body, right? Sort of like the meat and potatoes of it. And there's the earth, and the, cohesiveness is the water, and the transformation, the fire in the belly, that kind of thing. So those also relate to sense objects, right? Smell, taste, sight, touch, hearing, and then memory, intelligence, and ego are considered senses, in certain texts. And so what can you do to create purity there? Like create just safety and sanctity. Maybe we'll go out with this poem. It's about altar spaces. So the thing is like, you get to activate your body through what you see. You activate your body, your nervous system, your mind, your consciousness through what you see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. So you want to kind of really create a beautiful space. This is where setting comes, like set and setting is a real thing, right? And set and setting are connected, because what surrounds you, your experience becomes your insight. Remember that, right? So you want to have an experience that's going to nourish the quality of mind, right? That is insightful, right? You don't want to, I'm letting my kid watch Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, with the Miyazaki film, guy who did Spirited Away. And it's a big movie. It's a lot going on. And I let him watch like 5 minutes a day, because he needs to process it. There's like nature spirits, and, so this is what you do. Timothy Leary, Psychedelic Prayers after the Tao Te Ching. Let there be simple, natural things during the session. Let there be simple, natural things to contact during the session. Hand-woven cloth, carved wood, ancient music, flowers, growing things, burning fire, a touch of earth, a splash of water, fruit, good bread, cheese, wine, sacred smoke, candles, temple incense, a warm hand, anything that is more than 500 years old. And of course, it is always best to be secluded in nature. Right? That's my advice. Right? And it even, you could see that, like, that book, some of that prayer is kind of woven into this slide deck, even though I didn't necessarily do that consciously. But, so I thank you all for your kind attention. I might be able to, I'm going to spend a little bit of time in the Ozo room. If you go to the menu and we can hang out a little bit in Ozo. And consider, if you want this, I'll be doing this in February, sitting for Psychonauts Friends for 4 weeks in February. And I will also be doing a 3-day weekend in Oakland in February. So this would be my first live program since I,
Yeah.
in a long
We're gonna
time.
have you in the new community center here.
At the new community center, which Mike will maybe tell you about next week. He's going to be in Ozo. He's going to be holding some space in Ozo next week. Cool. I love you guys.
Love you.
Be well.
May the force be with you.